80% of job success actually comes from well-developed soft skills and people skills. So while you focus on your hard skills of building, how much of data sciences do I know, or how good am I at certain other aspects, that accounts for 15% of job success. And 85% of job success actually comes from well-developed soft skills. And that's something which I want to strongly urge. Do not miss honing that, because when you get into the industry, get into a workplace, you may be exceptionally good in your hard skills. But if you are falling short on your people skills and soft skills, that can actually drag you down, right? And the same study was basically, the findings from the same study were reinforced when American Society for Training and Development had done their study. And they basically found that even employers spend more money on training their employees on the hard skills as opposed to the soft skills. So it's interesting that success is largely based on the soft skills, but the spends are actually higher in the hard skills, which basically comes to the point that if you have to be able to do something and be a success, you have to spend your effort trying to hone your soft skills, because neither are companies spending there. Your success is dependent on it, but the companies are not necessarily spending their dollars on the soft skills. If you see out of the total spend, only 27.6% was spent on soft skills. So basically, I am actually insisting through this session that the onus of developing your soft skills, onus of developing that aspect which enables success for you, is largely yours. So you got to do something about that. Yeah, this is just a depiction of what I've already said. 72% hard skills and 28% soft skills in terms of spend, whereas the need is 85% in soft skills. The industry says so, and that's where you need to spend a little more time and effort trying to hone your soft skills. So it brings me to the point on while I think emerging technologies is the most obvious space for honing your skills in terms of hard skills, and therefore digital is anything that is relevant to your field, but with the digital aspect added on is where I would say the hard skills would automatically rest. I want to actually pause here and let you read this. These are 10 emerging and critical soft skills for professionals published by Harvard. And this was published by Harvard very recently. So it's in March. You're looking at March this year, that the skills that are identified by Harvard are to do with, say, emotional intelligence, to do with leadership and social influence, complex problem solving and critical thinking. Now, anything that you work on, the ability to think critically and problem solve and resolve, let's say, any situation, you innovate, you problem solve, you focus on the analytical and critical thinking aspects. But I think what also they're saying is this particular piece, now the second one, which I think is more important now than before, is you have to be a round-the-clock learner. You cannot say, I finished my qualification, I did my degree, I'm done with learning, now I will work. Every individual today has no choice, because there are several courses offered for free. There are courses that people are going through on their own, they're self-learning, etc. At any point in time, I would say that most students would be learning not just from universities. Of course, you need the university degree, but you are constantly learning different things. And I think the expectation now, it's not nice to have, not just a nice to have, I enjoy learning, or I did some extra course. You got to be constantly learning, because that is a critical skill to have. You have to be an active learner, and you have to find a way to keep learning on an ongoing basis. You can't stop learning. Again, if I'm looking at 8 job skills to succeed in a post-corona world, this is published by Forbes. This is again 17th of April, which is again not far back. So March and April 2020 is what I'm talking of. What are they talking? The 8 skills that they're talking of. And interestingly, only the 2nd, 4th, and 6th one are to do with technology. They're not specifying soft skills and hard skills, but the Second, fourth, and the sixth one, the tech savviness, data literacy, digital and coding, are the ones that they're mentioning, which I believe are a little more towards the hard skills oriented aspect. But everything else, adaptability and flexibility, basically saying you need to evolve continuously because the environment outside is evolving so fast, whether it is a COVID related environment or whether otherwise, the environment is evolving. You cannot be staying where you are because you need to evolve, you need to adapt and be flexible. You also have to look at it in terms of a situation where more and more of us are going to be virtual and operating virtually. So look at point number 7, they're talking of leading fluid virtual teams. So it's not that there will be this one big boss who will be running a setup and everybody has to be listening. It's likely going down the track that more often than not, most of you will have some position where you are going to lead small teams, and you will have a position of leadership with that small team or the small group. And within that, you have to have the skill to be able to lead that fluid virtual team, because today you might have that team for that project and that team might change for the next project, but you're still leading. And to be able to manage that with the right amount of emotional quotient, to be able to manage that with the right soft skills is necessary, because those are delicate. You should be able to hone and build on managing people, leading fluid virtual teams, and all of this can happen only when you have honed that skill at the behavioral level at your end. I think I have emphasized this point enough. But what I want to mention is you have no choice but to commit to a lifetime of learning, because according to the World Economic Forum, the last line here, 35% of essential skills will change in 5 years. So we are looking at change happening at that pace, and I'm quoting World Economic Forum, and that is a significant number when you're looking at 35% of essential skills are changing in 5 years. You've got no choice but to keep learning and learn what is happening out there, even if it means just understanding it at a top level, but find out, get to know. Don't think it is somebody else's job, somebody else's specialization. It may be so, but you lose out if you don't find out. So find out and at least get to know something. And of course, within your area of specialization, go as much digital as possible for you in terms of understanding the technology. Basically get tech savvy. That's necessary. Now, I know I've been telling you about what someone else is saying, someone else is doing, someone else is thinking. I thought I should tell you a little bit about what are my top 10 skills for career success, what have been, because what have I been doing which has helped me. It doesn't mean that, I mean, I could have done a lot more, but this, I believe, I've kind of synthesized to share with you what I believe has helped me. And hopefully this is of value. I will not play the last YouTube link because I'm not sure we have that much time on hand, but what I want to do is leave that link for you to look at. That's the person who I'd say in a large sense, she's a hero. She's my hero because this is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda, and it's fascinating how she leads the country and the amount of change she has brought about. And she's a very young lady, and it's fascinating to hear her story and watch her in action. And this link actually is I think it's about 2.5 minute video, which I won't play, but you can look at. It's about her achievements in 2 years. The amount of accomplishments, the number of accomplishments she has had in a span of 2 years is mind-boggling. So please do watch it. But what I want to share with you is, as far as I'm concerned, you've seen what I kind of showcased to you from the automotive industry perspective. So I always dive into understanding something with the greatest amount of detail. It is necessary so that you can make wiser choices. So understanding trends and skill requirements is necessary. So understanding what skill is relevant, look at your region, look at the industry, look at the company you're focused on, and see what makes sense. And that would be my first thing that I try to do anywhere. That's a skill in terms of understanding or spending some time analyzing and critically thinking what is the requirement. Build career capital, which basically means the same thing I've been saying. In an area of strength, become a functional expert and then keep honing that. Become somebody who people look up to and want to come to in that area of functional expertise. Now, whether you're in areas and find something which is an area of increasing importance. So what is relevant to you and what is an area of increasing importance? Find that, and that would make sense for you to sort of focus on. Find a mentor that you can talk to, somebody who can guide you. And it doesn't have to be the persons that you are in a university environment limited to that. You can find mentors who are willing to help you, who can guide you from anywhere, from within the university, from within the industry. Find your passion and give it your all. Now, here, I want to give you a quick story here. When you're passionate about something, then nothing stops you. So find your passion, that is important. And then you just absolutely go all out for it. That's helped me a lot. And all the other points, whether when you're wanting to do something, don't just dream, act it. Don't just think of, you know, I wish I could do this. I wish I had that. I wish. It's up to you to act on it. So that sort of has been one of the things that has helped me. Agility and speed to action. Now, when you act, do not just plan the action over an extended period of time. You need speed. So that I think is necessary. Very, very fast action is important, especially when everything around you is changing significantly. And when you want to accomplish something, you give it your all, but live in the present. Don't just imagine something that is going to happen. You kind of have to make everything in your current scenario, give it your all, and make it happen at that point in time. So that to me is, and feel excited about what you do, because you've got to feel excited about what you're trying to accomplish. And if I wasn't excited about this session, I probably wasn't going to be doing this session. So you've got to feel excited, you've got to be in it, and you've got to kind of just apply yourself. I'm very busy most of the time. I have long hours, but I gave this time just so that I could share a little bit of insight into what it means when you want to hone your skills. Don't just do it because somebody else is doing it. Don't just make a New Year resolution and say, I want to be fit because everybody else is doing it. If you know that you want to live for 100 years, then do it for your own sake. If you know you want to be fit for 100 years, do it for your own sake. And if you know you want to be fit for 100 years and help 100,000 people, do it for that reason. And then you won't have a reason, somebody else needing to tell you what to do. You're doing it for your own sake. That's your goal, and you're driven, and you will do it. And remember to learn around the clock, and whatever you do, be kind to people. You know, that never goes wrong. You've got to lead. If you're leading a virtual team, you lead a virtual team, but do whatever you do it with kindness. So those are my top skills. And I think I would not spend more time on this slide because we're kind of running out of time. We're at 8:50, right? My 8:50, you probably got 10 minutes left for the session to end. So what I want to do is, when you do all of that external studying and understanding, you've got to then ask yourself this question: what does the industry require as functional skills that you have understood? What does the industry require as soft skills that you have understood? What is your current skill set? And then you also understand, where do you stand? And therefore, and you also have to look at your goal. What is your why? Where do you want to go? What do you want to stand for? Where do you want to go? And to make that happen, where are you today? Where do you want to be? And what do you need to do? And that basically is what you need to focus on. So you do not look at skills because the skills are the in thing to do. You do it because of where you want to go, and then make your own assessment of where you are. So I think that sort of is, these are all my quotes, which I can just send it in the slide deck. It doesn't, because when you arrive, when you do that, the mind always will basically, where the mind goes, the energy flows. I think this is what happens. I would say that that's essentially what you need to sort of think it through, arrive at what you want, and then you just go for it. That's basically, I would conclude on that at this point in time. I know and I'll leave this slide on here because for any of your questions, you can sort of reference this, or you can.
Yeah, I will take it up. Thank you so much, Mrs. Candida, for sharing this wonderful experience, and your presentation was really good. And many of the slides actually, amused me as well. Though I am actually in a slightly higher level in education here, but I feel there is always a gate open. Gates are open for learning. A beautiful understanding and very nice rendering also. We have a few questions which quickly I just would like to ask you so that you can give the answer. Of course, you covered it. Once again, a student is asking, shall I suggest my brother to take up, course on or a program on automobile engineering? How worth is it now?
How worth is it now?
Yeah.
Okay, so the point is you are looking at automobiles. It's not like automobiles are going to vanish, and it's not like people are going to not use automotive. In fact, I want to give you a quick example of Nikola Motors. I have gone to their factory. Nikola is into uh, they are into the electric vehicle space, but not in passenger cars, in trucks and jet skis and jet boats and those kinds of things. Uh, Understanding automotive engineering, but with the future orientation. I don't know the automotive, the automobile engineering, the way it stands today in terms of its course curriculum. But if it is going to look at things which are sustainability related, which is going to look at environment related elements into it and industry 4.0 related elements, I would say do it. You might be unique in your understanding of that program, provided you have added those elements to it. If the course does not have those aspects, I'm sure Amity will add those elements to it, because it's constantly making it industry relevant, and also infusing it with industry speakers and talent. So I would say, if that's your passion, first establish if that's your passion. Do not do it if you don't want to do it. It's not something because it by itself stands as an industry. What do you feel about it? Ask yourself that question. And then if you find the synergy, do it.
Yeah, there is another question from Shweta Sinha. She is asking what changes in student assessment criteria is expected in Education 4 to meet the requirements of Industry 4.
What changes? Say that again.
What changes in student assessment criteria is expected in Education 4?
Okay. See, I think when you're looking at in Education 4, what also happens is, I mean, I'm sure you're doing courses online, you're having peer assessments happen, you're having mentors available there, you're observed virtually and so on. So the assessments that happen, depending on whether the course that you're doing is virtual or going to be at some point in time in a classroom, is going to have elements of assessment that are not just the faculty assessing you. It's likely to have more players in the mix that impact your role, making that assessment down the track. So I would say that Education 4.0 will allow for those assessments, or has been allowing for those assessments. And you've seen that happen. Some of the courses you do say on any of the edX's, Coursera's, or whatever else, other digital, other distance learning programs, definitely already have those aspects. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question. That
Yeah,
will be.
Yeah, maybe that new learner analytics also is coming through, and we are also actually into it. So
Yes, yes.
those things will be coming into that.
Yes.
There's a question from Nitesh Raj. How do you see COVID will impact education skill in developing countries in India, developing countries like India?
I think the infrastructure will be at this point in time. Let me take one step back at this for this particular question. See, we have seen that the adoption of emerging technologies and of distance learning and of transacting online has been there. It's sort of been picking up. But what COVID has done is it has completely accelerated that pace. Now, because it has accelerated that pace, it's like today, if I was doing, I'm giving you my example. Today, if I was doing a meeting, say if I had to go to Mexico for a meeting, and Mexico is not considered a developed country, therefore, so I'm just giving you an example. If I were to do a meeting in Mexico previously, I would actually fly down to Mexico, meet with people there, sit in a room, have my translators, do whatever in transacting like that. Today, that has changed. If I have to do a meeting, I'm not going there, I'm doing it virtually. And they are finding ways and means to sort of make that virtual meeting happen. Whether they find a way to sort of, they're finding ways to sort of expedite the infrastructure where they can actually have people connected. And I believe, therefore, for developing countries, the pace and speed at which the adoption of connectivity and infrastructure that might have slowed previously is going to pick up at a very rapid pace. That will be the shift. It is going to be almost automatically an expectation as opposed to a nice to have.
Yeah, there is Pushpu Tripathi from our institution. She's telling nice presentation and entire contents are really good. She has a question. How does Industry 4 affect the job opportunities in IT companies during and after COVID-19?
Well, I think during and after, I wouldn't, I would actually not make too much of a difference between during and after. I think with Industry 4.0, you're looking at if the companies have adopted it already, then nothing much will change. But if they are in the stage of adopting it and are in the process of implementing, the only thing during COVID is their entire process of making it happen would have stalled or delayed. That's about the only change. But then if they're directionally headed with it in terms of going Industry 4.0, you are looking at a scenario where most companies are now going to expedite it if they can financially manage it. And that is an important factor, because a lot of businesses are not necessarily going to be financially strong with the economic impact of COVID. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I do see that directionally Industry 4.0 is going to go forward. It's not going to fall back, except if they are in that transition phase and are going to have funding related challenges and those other economic related issues that will delay it for them. So it may be delay, but it is a yes, it will go forward. That's how I see it.
Good, ma'am. There is one question from Dr. Anil Kumar Mishra. He's asking, can you tell about the career option available in the area of smart manufacturing from students' perspective?
In the area of?
Smart manufacturing.
Smart manufacturing. Okay, yeah. No, so I think, see, I'll give you an example very quickly here. Say 2 years back, somewhere in Chicago, they had set up a big showroom for smart manufacturing. And you could actually see an example of an entire assembly line in a smart manufacturing fashion, how all of that was happening. Now, 2 years back, it was more an example or a demo or a showcase kind of a place. But the reality is just about everywhere, the need to do it, the need to sort of progress to that has been very rapid. So I've actually seen vendors who are enabling companies do the smart manufacturing more effectively. Having said that, I mean, there is enough potential for smart manufacturing in companies, in the manufacturing environment. You also have a lot of current skills, current employees not being adequately skilled to handle it. So the opportunity for students is significantly high, therefore, because the existing workforce does not necessarily feel equipped or isn't, and there's not as much training that's happening for that workforce to upskill. Also, there's also a resistance from that workforce to learn something new. So I think smart manufacturing, if you're skilled in that, if you are equipped in that, you are an asset to the organization.
There's one more question here from Rukmangada D. Work from home has thrown many challenges in employee soft skills. Would you like to elaborate on that? I mean, anything which you would like to take it further?
Yeah, I think it's the biggest, in fact, one of the points that I actually mentioned in the session was the biggest realization is you are actually thrown into, first of all, people are not familiar with using a laptop and where is the camera, where is the screen, what do I need to do? So the reality is people have no choice. So now people are learning how to actually use it, and there are people who are teaching how to use your how to kind of conduct a course online, how to engage with your team online, etc. Now, when it comes to soft skills, so that's just a little bit of a side conversation. But when it comes to soft skills, what happens is when I'm looking at a person in a meeting, when I'm transacting with a person in a meeting, I'm sitting across a table, I am talking to them, I'm engaging with them, I'm reading all the nonverbal cues, I'm sort of being able to have a little bit of pre-conversation and post-conversation and laugh about something. What happens when I'm doing an online meeting? Everything becomes to the point, everything becomes contained within that, and there is not too much opportunity to do a conversation at a coffee machine or those kinds of things. So the reality is, in this setting, all of those aspects get taken away, which means you've got to build a bond, you've got to build an equation, you've got to come across as real, as natural, drop your facade so that people feel connected. I think, to me, work from home has changed from the perspective of you are sort of letting your guard down a little bit, because there is no other way to get to know people except sort of when you allow for a little vulnerability, allow for a little connection, you are able to see the reciprocity in that connection and bond with the person in this fashion, because there's no other opportunity to do it. The other aspect which I touched upon previously was that about virtual teams, leading virtual teams. And now also remember that when you are dealing or transacting virtually, you are also required to have a level of empathy, have a level of emotional intelligence to be able to deal with the team virtually. And that doesn't come easy either, because first you're grappling with how to deal with this technology, then you're grappling with, okay, I just need my work done. And then you're grappling with, oh, I forgot about the soft side. I need to do that as well. So you have to consciously make the effort to connect with people when you're doing this work from home thing. I hope that
when you say work from home, there is a question from an architect, Sharath H. Chaital. Okay. He is asking, how will COVID-19 affect architecture and construction industry at large?
I think one of the industries I did mention on my very first slide was construction getting impacted. So I do see a big impact in terms of the construction industry, at least during COVID, definitely, because from multiple perspectives, you can maybe design, you can, and you can do that virtually, but how do you build? How do you build? You've got to be there. You can't just build virtually. so I think it is a significantly impacted industry. And I really am not in a position to predict how that's going to look. But I do think that elements of design, elements that allow for thinking and innovation can definitely go forward in terms of what you're creating architecturally and eco-wise, and creating building structures, which I believe in. When I was in Australia, I believe there was an institution that actually focused on certifying buildings that are green. So I would say that for the construction industry, you're probably looking at green being even more into focus. And perhaps there's more time to sort of design better buildings at this point. But actually build, I don't know at what point.
Yeah, I'll take the last question. Vikram Saini is asking, what industries in India are most likely to adopt to Internet of Things in next few years?
That's a good question. To me, if you look at Internet of Things, any manufacturing setup, and in fact, even financial services, you are even looking at financial services as an industry, but I'm not sure in India what is the uptake on Internet of Things at this point in time. So I may not be in a position to answer this at this point in time. Of course, I can look it up and research and find out and come back to you on it. But I think I wouldn't be equipped to answer this question right now.
Thank you very much. I think we have taken additional time because the subject was very interesting and your presentation was highly interesting. So everybody went through. I just would like to thank all the participants who had come here all the way and listened to us and then posted their question. And thank you very much, ma'am, for actually making your time. I know it's early morning for you, and probably would have taken much more time to get up from your bed. And for us, actually, you woke up and then got connected with us. And at this time, actually, I should also thank our Honorable Founder President, Sir, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, our Chancellor, Dr. Asim K. Chauhan, our Vice Chancellor, Professor P.V. Sharma, Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Padma Kali Banerjee. All these are visionaries. And in fact, as soon as the COVID-19 was, struck to India and then the lockout was declared, I would actually, would like to mention that immediately we found, without any hitch, we switched over from offline teaching to online teaching, and this was almost seamless. We never even felt even one day gap, and that is a type of vision our visionaries had for us and had trained us. And this is a continuous of webinar. We have done more than 250 webinars in this particular series, and thank you very much for being associated with us. I should actually personally thank you also for accepting our honorary professorship of Amity University, and we are proud to have you as in our board of the professorship.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It means a lot. I really appreciate it, and I am very honored to be a part of the Amity University setup. And I have visited your campus because that's where this happened. The title was conferred, and it is truly my pleasure to be part of this webinar series and to have talked to you and your the students and whoever else might have joined today. Truly my pleasure. Thank you for hearing me, and happy to help anytime.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.